Hi, folks, and welcome to another episode of Careers and Coffee. Now, today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Edward Creasy, who's the High Sheriff of Suffolk. So, Edward's going to come on, talk to us a little bit more about the role of the High Sheriff, but also his roles outside of that and all the fantastic work that he's been doing in Suffolk. So, let's bring on Edward. Edward, welcome. How are you?
Thank you, Jordan, and thank you everyone for listening in. Jordan, I am really well, thank you very much. We've had half an inch of rain here, but that's gone away, so at least there's not drumming on the roof as there normally is when that happens. But all is very good, thank you.
Good stuff. And before we kick off with lots of questions to find out a little bit more about what you do you have coffee or beverage to hand for Careers and Coffee?
Funnily enough, I don't, because I've just come back from Ipswich with a lunch with the bishop.
We'll let you off in which case.
Thank you very much indeed.
So let's kick off. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, so my name is Edward Creasy. I am the High Sheriff of Suffolk. I took the office in April this year. It's a funny position because the office only lasts for 12 months. But basically, I am the Queen's representative responsible for the judiciary in Suffolk and making sure that the judicial system in Suffolk works properly. Before that, I worked for some 40 years in London. From Suffolk. I'm a Suffolk boy, born and bred. And I stopped working full-time about 10 years ago. Since then, I've gone plural, I think the word is, working for charities, including one called Pilot Light, which helps other charities improve their performance, and part-time jobs in London and Suffolk.
That's fantastic. Excellent summary. Thank you so much. And I want to talk a little bit about the High Sheriff role first, and then to talk a little bit more about your career in London, and particularly sort of in the insurance sector. How does somebody become a High Sheriff? Talk us through that process.
Great question. The High Sheriff is nominated by a committee. It meets every year. It has a cross-section of Suffolk society on it, and names are put forward for the committee to consider. And once the name decided for the next year is real, I'm then invited by the High Sheriff at that time, and then there is a pause for 3.5 years before I actually take the position up.
Fantastic. And what's it been like since taking office?
It has been truly amazing. Really, really enjoyable, really fulfilling in particular. And whilst we have still had COVID restrictions applying throughout the whole time I've been High Sheriff, I've been able to get out and about. I've met some amazing projects, some amazing charities, and above all, amazing people throughout the county who are doing great things quietly for the community, which not many of us know about, but whose efforts really should be fully recognised as to what they do. So Jordan and I went for a stroll on the seafront at Felixstowe and met Suffolk Mind. That's a good example. We were able to get around the COVID restrictions like that, and various people in the Suffolk Mind team came up to talk to us, find out what we do, what they did. And Jordan and I are now lucky enough to have been offered a chance to go on a training course to understand mental health in much more detail. Now, that's the kind of benefit that I'd never have got had I not been High Sheriff. So it's been an amazing time.
Excellent. And why is it so important that we do sort of reach out to some of these unsung heroes in the community? Because I feel like there's a lot of folks out there who are just doing amazing work. And often, you highlight that and the response is, oh, well, why wouldn't I do that? Why is it so important that they're recognised?
I think it's important to us all, Jordan, that we are recognised for what we do. Human beings, I think, work better, feel better if they know what they're doing is appreciated. And whilst any of these lovely people will work and get on with the work because it's there, as you say, to actually have someone who is interested in what they do and can help them sometimes with connections, other names, other organizations, to make sure that they can fulfill what they want to do even better is all the more important to them. So I think, like you, I've been amazed by the reception I've had. It's just been a fantastic opportunity. People want to see you, and I am passionately interested in what these wonderful people are doing for our county.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And now let's talk a little bit more about your roles outside of the High Sheriff of Suffolk, and also rewinding the clocks back a little bit, back to when Edward was at school. You know, what was careers advice like for you when you're at school, and did you always know what you wanted to go on and do?
The careers advice when I was at school was absolutely non-existent. It just didn't exist. School was focused on getting you to university, and as far as school was concerned, once you got a place at university, they had done their job to hand you on to the next stage of your life. University, you were very much on your own. You applied for jobs at the end of your 3 years there, and if you were lucky, you got interviews, but you had no real idea of what a suitable job might look like or feel like or be like. So it was potluck. But without sounding, sorry for myself, and I'm definitely not, I would suggest that in those days, and we're talking a long time ago, we're talking the beginning of the 1970s, it was much easier to get a job than it is now. There was much less competition for the positions. The interview process was much more relaxed than it is now. So in that sense, I was very lucky.
Excellent. And I know we'll come back onto sort of your career shortly, but we've just got a question. So as a young person, why can being involved with the community and giving back be supportive?
Great question. I think it is being involved that is being supportive. We're all responsible for the health of our communities. Whatever age we are, whatever sex we are, wherever we come from, the community, we are part of a community, and the health of that community is absolutely fantastic. So we all, I think, in a way, have a duty to support our communities. I'd also add that when you do work and support your communities, you feel good about doing good. And that sounds a bit smug, but there is no doubt that working for charitable causes is really good for your well-being.
I couldn't agree more on that one. And it supports you even as a young person. It can support both with interacting with your community and feeling part of that community. It can even support with your career, depending on what voluntary position you have. Yeah, couldn't recommend it enough. And now let's talk and go back to your career. So went to university, left, pursued a career in London in insurance, I believe, to begin with. What was sort of the lure to that as a career choice?
Well, it was, and this sounds terrible, but it was looking for something to do that might interest me and might have something to do with the degree I've taken. And I graduated in history, and I was offered the chance to join a very small startup, which was part of a bigger company, basically looking at insuring people against political risks. And it was my own feeling that that would do. So it was literally suck it and see at that stage.
Excellent. And for anybody who wants to, and I'll come back to that question shortly, for anybody who wants to pursue a career in insurance, what's some of your advice to them?
Okay, well, I think to start with, my advice is, and I'd say this for any career, is to find out as much as you can about what the basics of insurance are like. And by that, I don't mean the dry technical stuff about how insurance works in the UK, but what it's like as a working environment. And insurance as a working environment, on the whole, depends on relationships. It's an interesting occupation because what you're doing fundamentally is marketing and selling and fulfilling a promise to pay if something goes wrong. So it's slightly more complicated than selling a car or anything like that. And if you are selling a promise to pay, the person buying it has got to trust you and your company. So trust is a very important part of it.
Excellent. And now I'm just going to come to the question below. So when you were younger, did you know what a high sheriff was, or that you wanted to be one?
Not a clue. Didn't have an idea. Didn't actually know very much about high sheriffs until about 5 years ago, and that was only because I had a friend who was a high sheriff. But no, it needed a huge amount of research in a very, very short space of time when I was asked.
That's a good result. I feel like that's probably most people when they're sort of approached by that.
Yeah, absolutely that.
And just coming back onto your career, so what are some of the skills that you've had to either learn or use during your career in insurance?
I've had to. Well, the first thing that to be successful in insurance, and this goes for so many other jobs, is to make sure that you get a specific qualification in the business. So I would say to anyone who's going into the insurance industry, they have to take the professional exams right up front, hopefully with their employer's help, to make sure that they understand exactly what the business is all about. That's on. So, just to use me as an example, when I started, I did a in-house course on credit insurance, and so I learned about the world of what happens when people pay and are being paid. I then moved on and did my chartered insurance associateship, and then this was a full 10 years after I started working. I became a fellow of the Chartered Insurance Institute. So the technical learning in any career, once you've started a job, whatever that job is really important. You have to apply yourself to it. And just as a tip, I think when you're being interviewed, if you believe it, you must tell your interviewer that you are keen to learn and develop your technical expertise in the subjects that you're being employed to do. So really important. I think more important in insurance is what I call, and I think, Jordan, you've heard me talk about this before, emotional intelligence. Again, insurance is a very relationship-driven occupation. So you need to understand very quickly the impact that other people have on you and the impact that you have on other people, and make sure that you are managing that in your own mind. And probably that's the most fundamental part of the whole insurance industry: building relationships, building effectively strong adult-to-adult based relationships where each one understands each other's point of view, what they're trying to do, and what each one is like.
Excellent advice. And how do you think that will work, or sort of what advice would you have moving forwards? Because to build relationships, especially over forms like this, can be quite challenging for young people. What sort of advice would you have, whether it be developing relationships online, virtually, through meetings, and even in job interviews, but also in person? What's some of your sort of top tips and tricks on that one?
I think let's deal with the online bit first, if we can. I think I'm rather expecting that life going forwards will be a mixture of communicating as you and I are like this, and communicating face to face. So I think we've got to get used to the etiquette of communicating remotely, and we've got to get reused to the normal way in which we communicate with each other. So again, I think it's very important once we come out of these restrictions, almost to learn again what it's like to talk to people face to face, and how important important that is. So I hope that answers that question. As far as tips in interviews are concerned, just moving on to that, my advice on that has always been that an interview is exactly what it says in the word. So it's an exchange of views between two people, and that you as the young person want the job, and the employer may want to employ you. But within the course of that interview, if it transpires that you don't think that the job is suitable for you, or the employer doesn't think that you're suitable for the job, that's not the end of the world. Both sides should be able to walk away and say, that's fine. That was a good chat. That one just didn't work, so we'll move on to the next one. So it's a matter more than anything else of making sure that you understand what the job is like, and what the employer you're talking to is like, and whether or not you feel that you can work there. And in terms of the message that you want to get across, I think you've got to be yourself, but in the interview you've got to be able to demonstrate the best parts of you. And if you can do that, that's fantastic. You can't do any better than that. And providing you've got your message across, providing people understand what you're good at, perhaps what you need improvement on, providing they understand your aspirations and your mentality, then you've done well in that interview.
Excellent advice, thank you. And we've just got another question in. So, what are some of your priorities as High Sheriff?
Fantastic. Well, the first priority, more than anything else, is to help us all relearn what a non-COVID restrictive life is all about. So again, Jordan, as you know, I've been really keen on getting out and about, seeing people, meeting them face to face, making sure that people are really thinking positively about a world where we don't have to be quite as careful as we've been for the last 15 months, while taking great care of ourselves at the same time. So adapting to the world as we knew it before, but learning from what's happened over the last 15 months. And I think that's a very important thing for the community. The second thing, which is one of the reasons why we're talking, is that I'm very keen to help young people, those coming out of school and those coming out of college, given what they've been through over the last couple of years, to be able to find the kind of jobs that they want and which will fulfill them as we go into this next section of our lives. So that's a particular priority for me. And indeed, Bishop Martin, today we had a working group talking about just that very subject. And the third priority is all about getting businesses and charities to work together so that both sides can learn from one another and be better at what they do.
Fantastic, well summarised. And just a couple more questions from me as we are coming to a close. What motivates you, Edward?
That's a lovely question. I think, given that I'm now 66, so I've been around. The thing that motivates me most of all now is working with people that I enjoy working with. That gives me the most fulfillment that I could possibly want. Money is Money, I think, and pay and things like that are a means to an end. But providing the people you're working with are good people and you can work with them and collaborate with them, and providing that you can work and solve problems with them, and providing you can work with them and laugh with them, that to me is absolutely critical.
Good advice. And one last question for you. If you could rewind the clocks and give young Edward as 14, 15 some advice for the future, what would it be?
In a nutshell, I think it would be get off your bottom and go and learn about what the world outside school and university is all about in a much more proactive way than you did.
Fantastic advice. Edward, thank you so much for joining us on Careers and Coffee today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
So folks, that was Edward Creasy, High Sheriff of Suffolk, and also talking about his fantastic career in the insurance sector as well. So that's the end of this week's Careers and Coffee. Be sure to tune in next week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4:30 to 4:50, and we're now coming up to just some of the last ones, and then we'll take a break for summer and then be back for September. But we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Thanks.